Today we shall be basically discussing the Nobel Prize in Economics for the year 2021 and how uh, these are different from the Nobel Prize in 2019. Because in the year 2019, the Nobel Prize was basically given for, we can say, RCT, okay? Or further experimental research to alleviating poverty. And this year, the Nobel Prize has been given for labor economics and establishing causality. So we shall have a comparison. And so before we get into the comparison, we should know the works and the Nobel laureates little bit. And so you know that this is Swedish Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in the memory of Alfred Nobel. And so these are three people have got Nobel Prize, and one half has gone to Professor David Card, who is working at University of California, and his work is basically empirical contribution to labor economics. So predominantly, he has worked on labor economics, and then another half of the prize has gone to Joshua de Angrist and Guido uh, Imben. And so Professor Joshua works at MIT and Professor Guido works at Stanford University. And both of them have got Nobel Prize for their methodological contribution to the analysis of causal relationships. And again, some biographical information about David Edward Card. He is born in 1956. He is basically a Canadian American labor economist. He has obtained his BA from Queen's University in 1978 and PhD in economics in 1983 from Princeton University. And his doctoral dissertation was indexation in long-term labor contracts. And in fact, very interestingly, this year's two Nobel laureates are student of one PhD supervisor. Okay, that is this man Arle Assenfeldt. So you will see, one is David Card, and then other one is Joshua Angrist. So both have, both these two Nobel laureates are students of one doctoral advisor. And Professor David Card is currently working at University of California, Berkeley. And then I was just looking at his Google Scholar citations, and this is how it looks like. Okay? That his age index is 110, so it's more than a century. In fact, I remember when C.N. Rao got Nobel Prize, sorry, Bharat Ratna in India, a lot of discussions were happening around him, and that what is his contribution, and then people are telling that his age index is more than 100, and it is more than like 100 centuries, because that year also Sachin Tendulkar got Nobel Prize. Sorry, the Bharat Ratna. I'm telling Nobel Prize, Bharat Ratna for C.N. Rao and Sachin Tendulkar. So, so people are comparing Sachin Tendulkar and C.N. Rao that if you compare cricket centuries, then this will be 100 centuries. Okay, and so you see that the David Card's work has gone for all labor economics, okay, and we will be discussing one of his papers, which has been discussed everywhere. Okay? And this is the paper which was published in the American Economic Review in 1994. In fact, the first version of this paper was published in the NBR. No, it was published as NBR working paper, and the paper title is that minimum wages and employment, a case study of the fast food industry in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Of course, this was co-authored with Krueger, Alan B. Krueger. In this paper, these authors basically had rejected a conventional theory, because in economics we all believe in demand and supply principles. Okay, and so we believe that whenever prices should go up, the demand for certain things will fall. And coming to the labor market, the same principle would also apply, theoretically at least, it is argued. And we believe that, or the conventional belief is that when the wage rate would increase, the employment will fall. Okay? That is the conventional belief. In fact, in our undergraduate courses, we have also studied. There is a downward rigidity of the wage. Wage, it is very difficult, to reduce. Uh, you may sack some people, you may retrench some people from your factory, from their job, but you cannot cut the wages. In fact, this is also part of the behavioral economics, okay? For which also Nobel laureates have got Nobel Prize in the past. And they were still trying to test this hypothesis whether the rise in wage would really reduce the employment. Okay? And they did this using a natural experiment situation scenario. So they did not do any RCT or anything, and they wanted to see the impact. Okay? See, we should also know the concept that when you say that there is an impact, that means you are talking about the causality. It is not merely an association. In statistics or in economics, or we basically discuss uh, the causality, okay, and whether some factor causes something else. And in fact, when we submit papers to some journals, if you write the word impact, they would look at the methodology, which methodology you have used to prove this impact, or basically causation. And if you have not used appropriate methods, then they would simply say that you have not established the causality. So how do you use the word impact? But in this paper, David Card and Alan Krueger had established the impact of the wage increase on the employment. Okay? And so it is basically based on a natural experiment, not RCT. Now, in fact, this is the abstract of the paper. No, you can read that also. It says that on April 1st, 1992, New Jersey state's minimum wage rose from $4.25 to $5.05 per hour. And to evaluate the impact, so this is the keyword, impact. Okay? To evaluate the impact of the law, the authors surveyed 410 fast food restaurants in New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania before and after the rise, and comparisons of employment growth at stores in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, where the minimum wage was constant, provide simple estimates of the effect. So the keyword again, impact and effect of higher minimum wage. And we also compare employment changes at stores in New Jersey that were initially paying high wages above $5 to the changes at lower wages at lower wage stores. We find no indication that the rise in the minimum wage reduced employment. In fact, here the authors have moderated their language, particularly in the last sentence. They say that we find no indication that rise in minimum wage reduced employment. But if you read the NBR working paper abstract, there they write that there was in fact a rise in the employment. And of course, in the conclusion, the authors have written. So here, a couple of things we need to understand. One is that to establish the impact or the effect, the authors have used a natural experiment. Now, what is a natural experiment? That you don't do it purposefully. You don't have to spend any resource. You are not doing any kind of experiment. But there is a natural setting which provides you a scenario which can be compared. Okay, that means you get a scenario where some intervention has been done, and you get another scenario, we say comparable, uh, where no intervention has been done. So that means you can consider or compare these two scenarios as experiment scenario, and other is the control group, and make and see the impact whether whether some intervention is causing something else. Okay, and in fact, we will be discussing more about this cause and effect relationship when I go to discuss Joshua Angrich's work. And in fact, very interestingly, I bought the book of Joshua Angrist 2 3 years ago when I was basically trying to basically revise a paper to establish basically the impact, because I got a comment from the reviewers that no, you are using the word impact, but then you have not used such methodology. So you should read some good books, and that's how I had bought that book of Joshua Angrist. And very, so I was very happy, when this person got, Angrist got Nobel Prize. And I thought, okay, so I have at least one book of the Nobel laureate. Okay, so coming to this paper of David Card, he got a setting of a natural experiment where one state government has increased the official minimum wage and other state has not increased the minimum wage, and then they are surveying 400 fast food restaurants in both states, and they found that the employment has rather gone up. Okay, and in fact, in the abstract of or in the paper of which is published as a working paper of NBR, that they also show that the wage rates, sorry, the employment also increased in both things. In fact, here you find two type of fast food restaurants in New Jersey, where the where some fast food restaurants had not increased the wage rate before it was announced officially, but there are also some fast food restaurants who were already paying a higher wage rate. Okay, so that is one setting in New Jersey. But in Pennsylvania, you also see there would be differential ways, but then there are also restaurants who have not implemented the rise of the minimum wage, and now they are comparing the restaurants uh, in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey, and there they found that where the even after the rise in the wage, the total employment has gone up, both in case of the restaurants where earlier wage was low and after implementation of official wage it has gone up, and in case of the restaurants where wage rate was already higher, there also employment has gone up. Okay, so and thus conclude that when the wage rates increase, the employers really do not reduce the jobs, rather they increase, and the burden is transferred to the customers. So consumers pay the additional cost, but they don't reduce the employment. So this is in fact, if you read all newspaper articles, people have talked about this paper, and in fact, at least for all the students of economics, I would say that this is a must read paper. This is available freely in Gesture, or you can download it from NBR website. You can understand like how beautifully they establish the cause and effect relationship, and how beautifully the paper can be written also. Okay, so the way, with very minimum technicalities, they have written the paper. In fact, that is the beauty of all these three authors who have got Nobel Prize in this year. They are using very strong econometrics with very simple English languages. Okay, so this is the major work of David Ricardo. I'm just giving one. You have already seen the Google Scholar citation. He's one of the editors of this handbook of labor economics, and then the second person is Joshua David Angrist. Okay? And you see that he's also the PhD student of Arle Asenfeldt, who is Joshua David Angrist is born on 18 September 1960, and he is basically an Israeli American economist, and born to a Jewish family in Columbus, Ohio, and he was raised in again Pennsylvania, and he obtained his BA in economics from Oberlin College in 1982, and he lived in Israel from 1982 until 1985, and served as a paratrooper in Israel Defense Forces, and he received his MA and PhD in economics from Princeton University in 1987 and 1989. So PhD in 1989, and his doctoral dissertation was econometric analysis of the Vietnam era draft lottery, and supervisor is Arle Asen Felte, and he's currently working at MIT. And again, if you look at his Google Scholar citation index, in H index he doesn't get 100, but in I10 index you get 157. And you see the most influential papers. In fact, this book, that mostly harmless econometrics, is the most popular book of just Angrist or Joshua de Angrist. And yeah, in fact, I had bought this book, Mastering Metrics. Okay, I have not bought this mostly harmless econometrics, but I think now I have to buy this immediately. And I think all economics students should know buy these two books. In fact, people who use economics and econometrics, even in other fields like psychology and sociology, can also buy these two books, because it's not so complicated. No book. They write econometrics in very simple language. I think anyone can understand. The complicated things they put in the annexure. So all should buy these two books, I would say. Okay, and now coming to establishing causality, we shall discuss a little more about that, because that is the work and on which we are going to discuss. So, causality remains a very controversial issue in economics, and whenever we study econometric theories and statistics, people think that, okay, by simply establishing the correlation analysis, by doing a correlation analysis, you can say that this causes that, okay? And that's how criticism starts. Okay? And now, why actually that is controversial? Because when you say that this causes the other, you are ignoring many other factors. Okay? And in economics, we use a very strong assumption called ceteris paribus. Okay? And whenever we use any mathematical model or we use any marginal principle, we use the very strong assessment called ceteris paribus, which meaning is no other things remaining constant. And suppose, say, take the case of David Cart's work, that when you increase the wage rate, whether the employment will go down or it will increase, there would be also other factors. Okay? And what would be the other factors? That and when we are trying to establish the impact of rise in the wage on the employment, you have to assume that all other things have remained constant. Now, what would be the other factors that would really influence the employment? One could be the demand for the fast food. Okay? Say, the authors have compared New Jersey and Pennsylvania, fast food restaurants. Now, suppose due to rise in the income, now the business of these fast food restaurants have also gone up. Okay? So then, even if you increase the wage rates, definitely the employers are not going to reduce the employment. Rather, they would increase the employment. So that is one factor. Similarly, the other factor could be that suppose a few shops are closed, and in that case, because there is a competition process and the inefficient firms would always shut down their business. So the existing ones would definitely increase their employment because the demand is increasing. Okay? And similarly, you are going for a product diversification. Say in the fast food restaurants, the typical food that we provide, are again say changed. You get new food, so that becomes the point of attraction. Okay? So many people will come there, and even if you increase the price, people would still eat those products and pay the higher price. So there would be so many other factors which would really influence this employment. Okay, and but when we say that rise in wage would reduce the employment, uh, we cannot simply see what has happened to the total employment in New Jersey and what has happened to the total employment in fast food restaurants in Pennsylvania. And from the simple correlation analysis or from simple observation of the total employment, we cannot prove that this has the rise in wage has impacted the total employment. We have to see that other things have remained constant. But the authors got actually a setting where you get basically a control group, that you are increasing the wage rate at one site and you are not increasing the wage rate at other site, and you see what is happening. And here you will be assuming that okay, all other things have remained constant, and of course in reality things will never remain constant. So those things need to be addressed through econometric methods. Okay, that how can we control for other factors and still prove that the rise in wage has caused increase in the employment. Rather, no, there is no fall in the employment. And so for that, in fact, I should okay. I have already shown you the cover book, cover page of Joshua Angrist. In fact, I was reading that. So here Joshua Angrist says we can use 5 methods. One is that random assignment, which is you can say RCT, and other could be regression analysis and instrumental variables analysis, and then of course there are again different forms of regression analysis we are doing, and regression discontinuity designs and difference in different methods. So, in fact, if okay, coming to random assignment, that you are randomly choosing two groups, and you are intervening at with one group, and you are not doing any kind of intervention with the other group, and you see what kind of changes are happening with the people of where you are doing intervention, and you do a comparison where no intervention has been done. So that would be coming under RCT, and then you do regression analysis, and we theoretically prove that that this causes this impact, and you have to take enough control variables. Then instrumental variable model, we are using that where you are using one instrumental variable which would be indirectly causing the factors but not directly. And then regression discontinuity designs, it is almost like a natural experiment situation, where in fact in Joshua Angrist's book, he writes that say take the example, he's giving the example of army recruitment in USA, where he says that those candidates who score only beyond certain cutoff are only selected into army. Now, if you have to compare, say, the performance of the people who got high scores and who got low scores for something else. So this, basically, okay, so people who got employment in army who have got good scores. Now, what would be, say, the impact on their income, okay, or you can see the impact in other things. And similar, the people who are rejected in the army recruitment process because they could not get a certain score. Now, what would be their income? Okay? So that is also providing a natural setting. Similarly, there are many other examples given in the Joshua Angrist's book. And then difference in difference method. This is also little easier to understand. Difference in difference is that see when we do some intervention at one place, we believe that all the changes have happened because of this intervention. Okay? And we try to give all the credit to the intervention that we have done. But that is not true, because people would argue that even if you do not do such intervention, some changes would happen. Okay? There is a natural process of change. So whether you intervene or you do not intervene. Now, to prove that your intervention is doing some impact, you have to take two groups where you have to compare that. You take a baseline survey in two places, place 1A and place B. So the baseline survey is completed. Now you are doing some intervention in a place A, and you are not doing any intervention in place B. Now, after 5 years, you are doing a comparison. What kind of differences have happened in place A due to intervention, and what kind of changes have happened in place B without any intervention? And you compare the differences in the differences. Difference in the sense that means A and B are different. Now you are comparing the difference in A, and you are comparing this difference with the changes that has happened in B. So if the changes in A which has happened due to the intervention is significantly different from the changes that have happened in B. If it is significantly different, then you can say that okay, this is significant. So this is difference in different method. In fact, this is this is a relatively easy method, because in all of the, of course, instrumental variable case regression is also easy. People are not publishing many papers using instrumental variables, but after say 2019 Nobel Prize in Economics, in fact, the best journals in economics now are considering publication of paper if you do only RCT. In fact, there are so many journals who would accept your paper only if you have done some kind of experiment, whether it is natural experiment or RCT. Okay, so economics has also gone in that direction, which is becoming more it is criticized as it is going in a capitalist approach, that you need a lot of money to do RCT. So but difference method is somewhat okay, because you can, of course, it involves a lot of resources, like you have to do baseline survey in two places, and then you have to do intervention in one place and wait for some time, like minimum 2 3 years, and see the impact and do the comparison. So this also includes like time and resources, but this is somewhat easier than RCT, I would say. And in fact, in the book Mastering Metrics, Joshua Angrist has beautifully explained the Robert Frost poem. Okay? And basically it explains beautifully about the causality and the problems that we face in economics. So read this poem. Two roads diverge. Okay, the poem is basically the road not taken. Okay? And that is by Robert Frost. And the poem is reads like this: Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And be on traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. And the Frost traveler concludes that two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So this is the point, that okay, there are two roads, but you could travel only in one road, and you are claiming that I am traveling, or I traveled in a less traveled road, and that's what I have made a difference. But this conclusion is probably not appropriate, in the sense that you have not seen the other road, whether you could have made also a difference by traveling the other road. In fact, that's why in economics, when we make a counterfactual argument, many times we say that it doesn't make any sense. So for example, if you say that what had happened if Nehru would not have been the prime minister? If Nehru was not the prime minister, what would have been the economic growth rate in India? I don't think that there is this counterfactual argument would really be valid, and whether you can prove anything. Okay. So when in the poem, the traveler concludes that no, I took the less traveled road, and that has made all the difference. This is probably not a very good conclusion, because you have not seen the other road, and that's why this counterfactual argument would not be valid. And again, Joshua Angrist quotes another novel that is written by the novel is novel Light. Okay, that is Light Years, where it is written that acts demolish their alternatives, and that is the paradox. So when you are doing something, the alternative doesn't exist. So how will you compare that this act is only causing the other things? Because you don't have the scenario to make any comparison. Okay? So that's why we cannot know what lies at the end of the road not taken. Okay? And so to establish the causality, one thing that Joshua Angrist has said is that first of all, we have to do the comparison under ceteris paribus conditions. Okay? And if you can do that, if you can prove that no other changes have happened, or statistically or in econometric method you are able to control for the other factors properly, then only you can establish a causal relationship. So that is, the contribution, major contribution of Joshua Angrist. Okay, and then going to uh, Guido W. Okay, immense. He's born on September 3, 1963. I don't know whether no, I'm pronouncing the names also correctly. Okay, so Professor Guido is born on September 3rd, 1963 in Netherlands. He's a Dutch American economist, and as a child, Neumann was an avid chess player. He graduated with a candidate's degree, which is equivalent to a bachelor's degree in econometrics from Erasmus University, Rotterdam in 1983. And he obtained an MSc degree with distinction in economics and econometrics from the University of Hull in Kingston upon Hull, UK in 1986. And in 1986, one of the immense mentors at the University of Hull, Anthony Lancaster, he moved to Brown University, and that's how Guido also moved to Brown University to work with Lancaster, and Guido received AM Arts Master in Arts, and a PhD degree both in economics from Brown, and okay, so both MA and PhD from Brown University in 1989 and 1991 respectively. So within 2 years, they get PhD. 1989 and 1991. Very interesting. Okay, so again, looking at the Google Scholar citation, now here you see again 74,000 citations. Okay, total, and H index 85, and I10 index 159, and you can see the influential papers, which have got maximum citation. And again, this is the very popular book of Guido, Causal Inference for Statistics, Social and Biomedical Sciences, an Introduction, co-authored by Donaldo B. Rubin. And so here I'm now bringing back, the Nobel Prize in Economics that was given in 2019 for their experimental approach to alleviating global poverty and the methodology. These three authors, Abhijit Banerjee and his wife Esther Duflo, and Michael Kramer, basically got Nobel Prize for RCT. That's the experimental approach to alleviating poverty. So whether it is labor economics this year, or no, you talk about the Nobel Prize in 2019, which has also gone for experimental approach to alleviating poverty. Both have experimental approach, whether it is the labor market or alleviating poverty. So two type of experiments we are using. One is that you are doing RCT, and in fact, Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Dr. and Michael Kramer were praised equally. There are a lot of critics also that after the announcement of 2019 Nobel Prize, people criticized that that now Nobel Prize is also becoming corporatized, because for taking up research in RCT, you need crores of rupees. Huge amount of money is required, and in fact, that Abdul Latif Jamil Research Foundation, which is working in India also, they take a lot of corporate funds, and when you are doing an experiment, and you are so that needs money, you need also time. 2 3 years of intervention is required, and then only you can make a comparison, and only then only you can publish your paper. So that's how people also criticized. But no, we can have a comparison of RCT and the natural experiments. So when you talk about the RCT, basically we do purposefully an intervention, because it follows the medical principle that you are administering some medicine to some group, and you are giving placebo to other people, and you are doing a comparison what is the effect of the medicine. Similarly, here you are also doing some intervention. So, for example, a simple example you can take, that say reducing school dropouts by providing cycles. So in one place you provide cycles to the school going children, and in other place you don't give anything, and you see whether the cycle no giving cycle to school students have increased the uh, uh, enrollment rate and retention rates in the schools. So first of all, you have to spend a lot of money in providing cycles. Then you have to conduct a baseline survey. You have to do the survey after the intervention. You have to wait also for a couple of years. and then do a comparison. So RCTs are done very purposefully, and these are very expensive and criticized as promoting capitalist research. But on the other hand, natural experiments, are not done purposefully. Okay, so government has done something. You have to find out a setting, just like an experiment, just like David Card had selected a scenario where one state has increased the minimum wage rate, and in other state you have not increased the minimum wage rates. In fact, I was also thinking that, in fact, COVID-19 has also provided many scenarios, such scenarios, natural experiment scenarios. And one example would be the effect, how to control the pollution, by shutting down the industries, how quickly you can go back to the normal situation. Okay, so people can easily compare the situation before before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, and you can see that by shutting down these many industries and these are activities, how much pollution you can easily control. Similarly, you can also see, say, for example, rise in petrol prices. In the present setting, you can see that, say, some states are not increasing their state GST, okay, and some states are increasing other GST. So in that case, you see there is a difference in the petroleum prices, at two different places, and you can assess what is the impact of differential taxation by the state governments on the petrol consumption. In fact, we can probably also take a situation where you see the petroleum prices at two different places in the same state is different, and you see whether this has an impact also. So you have to find out a setting where some intervention has been done at one place, and some intervention is not done in other place, and you make a comparison before. So basically, you have to again follow the method of difference in difference method, that you are, suppose in place A some intervention is made, and you compare that before intervention and after intervention what all changes have happened, and in place B where no intervention is done, you compare the situation in the same time period before and after, like in setting A, and do the comparison difference in difference. Okay, then only you can establish the cause and effect relationship. So this is again much less expensive, but then you have to be very careful in selecting the places. Okay? And again, you have to also know the factors that would be influencing, okay? Because the ceteris paribus thing you have to understand. If you can keep other things constant, then only you can establish the causality. So of course we cannot say that whether RCT is better or natural experiment is better, because see, for the intervention that you want to make, natural experiment may not exist at all. In that case, RCT would be probably the only solution. Although it may require a lot of money, it would be the only solution. But if natural experiments are available, then I think that would be probably the best solution. Okay? And because this is not very expensive, and even PhD scholars can also take up a scenario like this and do their PhD work. But in case of RCT, for PhD scholars it is very difficult. You need a lot of money, and you may not get funding from any source. So it can only be done through some research projects. Okay, so both have their own merits and demerits, and but yes, we can say that now economics is becoming like more science, and when we're trying to establish the cause and effect relationship, just like the doctors do, now economists are trying to do, but then we have to be careful to prove this. Okay? And if you are not sound in understanding the methodologies, then we cannot just claim that we are doing and cause and impact analysis. So that's all. I would stop here. If there would be anything, we can discuss. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really a wonderful talk, very detailed and insightful. Now we will go ahead and take some time for discussion. So the floor is open. Anybody can ask anything.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Virendra. The thing is, okay, so I am not familiar with the two concepts. Um, I was wondering, like, just something randomly that came to my mind. Like, suppose the midday meal scheme. Okay, so like, suppose one wants to see, this is already a policy, right? So where, like, the student, I mean the child has to come to the school for a few hours daily to be able to get the food, right? So the nutrition aspect and the education, both of them are combined. So this already is a policy. Let's see, there are other policies also, like if the girl child comes to school, like Nitish government's policy, then they will get a bicycle. If they don't come, then they won't get. So that becomes an incentive. So that kind of casual relationship. So, and as a policy, like something like this happens for, let's say, a few months, and then once one studies on it. So I mean, will that be seen as a natural experiment? uh, not sure if I understood. I mean, just having some queries. Is that?
Yeah. No, see, in case of natural experiment, what you need is that you need one place where the intervention has been done, and you also need another place where no intervention is done. Okay? And so, for example, now suppose, in fact, in present context, I think all states are providing cycles and midday meal scheme. So you cannot do any comparison now. But usually, when we take what we call pilot projects. So, for example, ICDS was implemented for the first time in Tamil Nadu. Okay? Then you can go back to the old data and see when ICDS was implemented in Tamil Nadu, what all changes were observed, and you can compare the same old data in some other state where ICDS did not exist. Okay? And then that would be the so then you can compare. Similarly, cycle thing also came quite late. Now even Odisha government is also providing cycles to the girls, and so you have to see that which state government implemented the cycle scheme for the first time, and do do an analysis that, okay, when you provide, okay, you have to do a baseline survey when no cycle was provided to the students in Odisha, girl students in Odisha. So what was their retention rate and enrollment rate, and what all changes have happened after providing cycles. So you found the difference in Odisha. And suppose Bihar has not provided cycle in the same period, then you see the changes that has happened in Bihar. Okay, in the same time, let's say 5 years or 2 years or 3 years. And then if the difference in Odisha would be significantly different, from say Bihar, then you can say that, okay, the cycle provision of cycle has made a significant difference. So this is difference in difference method. Okay, you are simple difference you are not seeing. Okay, that, okay, here we are providing cycles and there we are not providing cycles, so we can make a comparison. No, why? Because without government assistance also, the income of the people would increase naturally, and they can spend that own money for buying a cycle. Similarly, in this time period, the road connectivity might have improved. So that would have encouraged the girls to go for education. Similarly, the one girl's education in a particular village might have motivated other girls to go for education. So there will be so many other factors which might have impacted. That is why we are taking one scenario where no intervention was done, but naturally changes have happened, and so we observe the natural changes and intervention, purposefully intervention changes, and so see the change, and make a comparison whether the purposefully intervention has brought significant changes from the natural changes. That would be a natural setting. Okay, am I clear?
Yeah, thank you, Amarinder. Just one small, thought. See, it was very clear explanation. So that brings me to this like comparison. Let's say in Niger, the in our institute, let's say the integrated MSc students, they
Yes.
get a scholarship, right? In
Yes.
for similar programs, let's say in IGERS, they don't get. So, can a study be done on this? Will that be considered as a natural kind of experiment study? I mean,
Yes, this can be done. Yes,
okay.
this can be done. Yes.
Thank you.
That's what, in natural experiment you just have to observe the things, that, okay, which one provides you such a setting where some intervention has been done and no intervention is done. Yes. I think Ruplika ma'am has raised hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, please. Ma'am, please.
Okay,
You can
I'm
proceed.
on my way, Amarendra. If is there any disturbance in the background noise?
No, you have raised hand. That's why I thought.
Yes, yes. No, one question I had, taking a cue from what Dr. Amarjit asked. Don't you think, this incentives, I think that has been, this RCT has been criticized on these grounds, right? On incentivizing
Yeah. No,
interventions. Right?
in fact, yeah, there are a lot of criticism of RCT. In fact, the other criticism that I did not mention is that when we are incentivizing one group of people,
Yeah,
this this incentive may work only for one section of the society. This may not work in other context.
and that is
So
why, in developing countries, it has been criticized quite widely, why it is being
yes, so this is very much contextual, and no, we know that people may say, for example, even midday meals. You can see the functioning of midday meal scheme. There are places where people really eat with a lot of happiness the midday meal, because really people are not the people who are deprived. If they feel happy if they get some free meals in the school. But then now midday meal scheme also becomes a status symbol, that the people in certain context people think that it is meant only for the poor people. So the better of the students belonging to the better of families consider this as a status symbol, and they don't eat it.
okay. The same with pattern nano.
Yes. So there would be many such examples. Okay.
The second one is in RCT, it's possible to compare two interventions also, not necessarily one control and one experimental. Like say, for example, farm practices, two kinds of farm practices. One is the regular traditional ways, that is control one, but then there can be two interventions and comparison between them also.
Okay, no, if you are doing if you are doing two kind of interventions, then that has to happen at one place, but in other place there should not be any intervention, so that you
No.
observe.
Just a minute. So, see, in our kind of subject, suppose there are two kinds of therapies being given for the same kind of health issues.
Yes.
Okay, you cannot give it to the same person.
Yes. No, yes, that can be done. Yes. So here, no, so here, what you are doing, you are again doing you are observing the changes, or you can same difference in difference you are observing. So the difference caused due to say intervention X at place A, and effect of intervention Y in place B, and then you are comparing the differences that have happened in two places. So that is also fine. Methodological, this is perfect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. So, may I ask a question?
Yeah, yes, sure. Why am I? Yeah, please ask.
So, first of all, I would like to thank you for such an enlightening session. So, my question is, I was wondering, is experimental method is the only way to establish causal relationship, or there is any other method through which we can establish causal relationship between variables?
No, you can still establish causality, but there are other methods. In fact, I showed you 5 methods, and one is that you are taking regression analysis and you are taking instrumental variable regression. In fact, nowadays simple regression people don't accept. You are taking instrumental variable regression, but again, in case of that instrument variable regression, you have to choose the right instrument, okay, and again see the effect of the instrument. That is also still remaining. That is still remaining controversial, but many people are accepting this, okay, because instrument variable has been widely used. But then, particularly for the economist, now they are becoming so obsessive for this experimental research. Many journals do ask whether it involves any kind of experimental, whether it is natural experiment or RCT. Okay? But no, it's not that. No, it is the only thing that you have to do. You can still do regression analysis, where you have to theoretically establish that what all factors would be directly impacting, what all factors would be indirectly impacting, and you have to control for all the variables that would be indirectly impacting. So the ceteris paribus assumption I was telling, that if you can clearly identify that these are the variables that would be indirectly affecting, and we have controlled for all these variables, and then we are establishing that this intervention has caused this, then also people would accept that this has caused something. Causality can be still established.
Thank you, sir. Sir, is it any way related to structural equation modeling? Because the other day I was reading an article, and I have been reading quite articles which have been using structural equation modeling to establish kind of mediating and moderating relationship between variables. So,
No, structural regression is just one. Okay, there would be many regression methods, and that's why I would say that you please read this book. Okay, I think this is not the Joshua Angrist book. You can come to my office. I'll show you that book. You can also all buy that book, because this provides you explanation for all the methods. Okay, that mastering metrics. Okay? All of you, I think, should buy this book. And there, Joshua Angrist explains by using simple regression how can you establish. Okay, and see the concern in using econometrics is that you have to go in a very systematic manner. You have to understand the assumptions and use that method appropriately. That's why when you read good books, the way they explain, you will feel really happy, and then if you use that method, your paper will be accepted for publication. So you can either take this book or you can buy this book and read this. There are many econometric methods.
Thank you, sir. Actually, I don't know the difference. Actually, the use of regression and structural equation modeling in detail. So, I would be grateful if you could teach us these things.
Yeah, you can discuss. No, you come, we'll discuss. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
In fact, I should have also shared that YouTube channel of Joshua Angrist, I think. Am I correct, Lakshmikant? What is the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah YouTube channel? No, I think you should. Lakshmikant,
Marginal
please share this
Revolution
with.
University.
Please share this YouTube channel with Suchishmita and others also. I think all PhD students, whoever will find interesting, can use that. Very good YouTube channel, they have created, and they beautifully explain things. Lakshman, do please share this YouTube channel.
Yes, sir. It is MRU, Marginal Revolution University. You can
Yes,
search
yes.
and find.
Yes.
Sir, I have to conscience. I was going through this RCT and as well experiment yesterday. So definitely these methods are better over the previous or traditional or conventional controlled experiments or observational studies, where we basically run the regression on the basis of previously hypothesized models. But sir, in my view, there are basically two issues with this RCT and natural experiments. One is basically when we are talking about the accuracy of the data, which the researcher access while doing RCT versus the publicly available data. And the second one is, sir, it is basically the composition. I mean, the fallacy of the composition after the causality. When some like I can refer to the Keynesian general theory. When Keynes came, he said that Westcott for workers can reduce employment in some places, but in that particular sector, it can rise the employment. But if you look at the entire economy, I mean, wide synchronized economy, you will see that wage cut will lead to a drop in wage income, so that the nominal demand will fall down, and as a consequence, the employment will come down. But according to this Nobel winner, Kado, he said that by increasing minimum wage, the employment will increase. So there is definitely a fallacy of composition. Can you say that there is also something like researchers' impression or ideology? Is, yes, sir, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Okay.
Sir.
In fact, huh.
So, sir, let me complete.
Huh.
Yeah, can you say that sometimes even if you do RCT or a natural experiment, when you are establishing the composition, is there anything like the researcher's ideology or impression can also change the I mean actual outcome? And coming to accuracy of the data, if you look at all the papers related to RCTG and natural experiment, I don't think most of them have their own data. They also depend upon publicly available data. So, how would you like to see these two issues in case of RCT and natural experiment?
In fact, the popular paper of David Card has also been criticized. Okay? When he proved that that due to rise in wage, employments have also gone up. It's not that he has not been criticized. Many people have criticized his methodology also. Okay? But people have also supported. In fact, famous economists like Paul Krugman and Joseph Stiglitz, they all have come in support of David Card. But people have also criticized his methodology. So there is no single truth in social science. Okay, you may say that the variable that you choose would also have no implications, and the methodology that you choose. And in economics, you know that no single methodology is considered as the methodology or undisputable. You cannot say that. Every methodology has its own limitations, and selection of variables would have its own implication, and that biasness I cannot definitely rule out this biasness and always gets reflected. And whenever we get a paper, in fact, I'm teaching introduction to economics to the past MSc students, and again I was referring to the book of Alex Thomas, where macroeconomics, an introduction, where and he also tells that although we have thought that economics nowadays has become more scientific and so on, it is not so true, because all the activities has a political backdrop, okay, and it has a historical root, it has a social root, it has a geographical answer also. So you cannot simply explain that whatever variables you consider in your model, you may also suffer from omitted variables bias, right? And there would be definitely criticisms, but that's how research still continues. And it's not that after the work of David Card, nobody else will do any other method, okay? Or that is considered as the only method that all economists should use. It is nothing like that. So everything evolves, and no, okay, at present we think that okay, this is one of the best methods. Okay? Whether you use RCT or natural experiments, use difference in different method or any econometric tool, we try to establish causality by doing this. But yeah, it has its own limitations.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I think
Okay,
Milky has
yes,
raised
yes,
hand.
yes.
Milky.
Thank you, sir, for today's presentation. Actually, sir, I just have one query. How nature of population or characteristics of a population affect both RCT and natural experiment? As far I understand, like natural experiment can be conducted when an intervention is done in one population, and we will take another population where no such intervention has been given. For example, the distribution of bicycle among girl students, in Odisha it has been given, in Bihar it has not yet started. So we can compare both the population and can understand the difference and its effect. So does the nature of population or the characteristics of population matters in this case, or it can be sidelined, if I have to put it, like Odisha, the population is different, Bihar, the population is different. There are various other characteristics of the population which may influence certain parameters. So, how do we look into this? Yes, sir.
No, it does. In fact, we say that so the sociology, okay, the social factor, the cultural factors, no, this does influence. Okay, and in fact, that's why in economics we have a separate discipline called institutional economics. How the cultural values, how factors do influence, and that is why when we use econometrics, we also keep an error term. Okay, and whatever cannot be explained, we put that under the error term. Okay, we always acknowledge that the behavioral changes that you observe, among a section of the society where you are doing this study, we are able to say explain say 80 percentage or 90 percentage, even sometimes much less, but we are not able to explain some changes that could, even the unexplainable part would be 30%, 40 percentage. So in fact we use a score called R square, adjusted R square value we use. So that is the explaining capacity of the model. Yeah, and we still accept that there are omitted variables and there could be selection bias or some errors. We try to minimize, since all these methods that now we are discussing try to minimize the errors, but errors cannot be zero. And that's in all econometric methods we always keep an error component to openly accept that there are also other influences which we cannot capture at all. Okay? But however quantitative things you take, we cannot capture. In fact, there are behavioral issues, there are social cultural issues, and we have to accept that yes, those factors also do influence.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, if there are no other things, we may close. Lakshmikant.
Yes, sir. It looks like we have covered all our questions. So, if sir, is there anything else you want to talk before the wrap up?
No, only I would say that at least whoever is interested to know about this causality things, you all should read the popular books that I have shown in this presentation. That's all I would like to say. Nothing else.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here, and thanks again for joining us today. And we'll see you in next time. Thank you.